You know, when you spend 30 years with someone, you start believing they're a part of your soul. You wake up next to them, share every sunrise, every heartbreak, every silent dinner where words aren't needed anymore. My name's Henry Walker, I'm 73 now. And if you'd asked anyone in town about me, they'd say, that's the man who never left his wife's side. Because for 30 years, I took care of Margaret, my wife, my partner, my world, after she fell sick. She was once the kind of woman who'd light up a room with her laughter. But after that terrible accident, she never walked again. Doctors said she'd need help for the rest of her life. And I didn't even hesitate. I retired early, sold my truck, and dedicated every breath I had to her. I fed her, bathed her, combed her hair, read to her every evening. Some nights, when her pain got worse, she'd cry, and I'd just sit there, holding her hand, whispering, "It's okay, Maggie. I'm here. Always." People in the neighborhood admired me. They said, "Henry, you're a saint." But I never saw it that way. I wasn't being noble. I was being a husband. That's what love is supposed to mean, right? To stay when it's hard. To choose someone even when life takes everything else away. For 3 decades, I cooked her meals, made her laugh when she forgot what laughter felt like, and pushed her wheelchair through the park so she could feel the sun. We had our routine. Morning pills, breakfast, soft music, a book after lunch. And though she couldn't do much, she always had her phone. I remember thinking how it made her feel connected to the world, to her friends, to life. Sometimes she'd smile at the screen and I'd ask, "What's so funny, Maggie?" And she'd just say, "Oh, nothing, Henry. Just a video someone sent." I didn't think much of it. After all, what could a bedridden woman possibly be hiding? One day, while I was watering the front garden, our neighbor Tommy came walking over. Now, Tommy's a good kid, lives alone, mid-30s, friendly guy. He'd often stop by to chat. But that morning, something in his eyes looked different. Nervous. Heavy. He said, "Mr. Walker, could we talk, privately?" I wiped my hands on my jeans, a bit confused. "Sure, son. What's wrong?" He hesitated before pulling out his phone. "Sir, I wasn't sure if I should show you this, but I think you deserve to know." And then he played a video. A short one, maybe 10 seconds. But those 10 seconds burned themselves into my memory like fire on paper. I saw my wife. My Maggie. Lying in bed, smiling. But not the way she smiled at me. She was holding someone's hand. A man's hand. And whispering something I'll never forget. "You promise you'll delete this after you leave, right?" The camera shook, and then I heard a man's voice, deep, low, familiar. "Don't worry, baby. He'll never find out." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the ground slipped from under me. 30 years of love, care, devotion, all crashing down in 10 seconds. I felt my chest tighten, my heartbeat pounding so loud it drowned out the world. I looked at Tommy, who looked pale himself. Where did you get this?" he said quietly. "Someone sent it to me by mistake. It was recorded from inside your house, sir. A few months ago." I couldn't even process that. Inside my house? While I was out buying her medicine? For a second, I wanted to deny it all, tell myself it was fake, maybe edited, maybe some cruel prank. But deep down, something inside me whispered that ugly truth. It was real. And right there, I realized something that chilled me more than betrayal itself. That I didn't even know the woman I'd been sleeping beside for decades. Was it pity that made her stay with me? Or guilt? Or was she just waiting for me to grow old enough to not notice anymore? I walked back into the house, my legs shaking like a man learning to walk again. She was sitting in her wheelchair by the window, reading. When she saw me, she smiled, the same gentle, innocent smile that once made me fall in love. "You okay, Henry?" I stared at her for a long moment, trying to find the truth in her eyes. But all I saw was a stranger. "Tell me, if you were in my place, would you confront her right away? Or would you stay quiet until you knew everything?" I honestly don't know what the right thing is anymore. That night, I barely slept. Her breathing, once a comforting rhythm, now sounded like a lie in the dark. Every sound, every cough, every sigh, made me question what else she'd been hiding. At 2 a.m., I got out of bed, went to the living room, and sat there in silence, staring at our wedding photo on the mantel. We looked so happy then. Her eyes were filled with dreams, mine with promise. 30 years, wasted? No. Something in me refused to believe it was all fake. But then again, the video, it was too real. I needed to know who that man was. Why he came into my home. And how long this betrayal had been going on under my own roof. By sunrise, I'd made up my mind. I was going to find the truth, quietly, carefully. Because if she could betray me after 30 years of devotion, then I wasn't the same gentle Henry Walker anymore. I was a man who'd been turned into something else. A man who needed answers, even if they shattered what little heart I had left. When the sun came up that morning, it didn't feel like morning anymore. It felt like Judgment Day. I remember sitting by the kitchen table, the old clock ticking behind me, while Maggie hummed softly in her room. That same song she always hummed when she wanted to sound innocent. Funny how a melody can suddenly sound like a lie. I made her breakfast, oatmeal and tea, like every day. My hands trembled as I placed the tray in front of her. "Here you go, Maggie." She smiled, that sweet, calm smile, and said, "You're such a good man, Henry." And I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that I'd seen the video. That I knew. But the words stuck in my throat like stones. Because I wasn't ready. I needed more. I needed the truth from her lips, not from a neighbor's phone. So, I played my part. I smiled. I cleaned the dishes. And while she watched her morning shows, I went to her room and quietly checked her phone. Locked. Of course. She'd never had a password before. But now, she did. That tiny lock icon on the screen felt like a wall between us, between 30 years of trust and the stranger she'd become. Over the next few days, I watched her differently. Her eyes. Her hands. The way she flinched when the phone buzzed. Every time she smiled at that screen, my heart sank a little deeper. Once, I caught her deleting messages right after reading them. I asked, pretending to sound casual, "Who you texting, sweetheart?" She said, "Oh, just old friends checking in." Old friends. 30 years, and I'd never seen her have that many old friends. That night, when she fell asleep, I went back into her room. Her phone was under her pillow. I took it slowly, careful not to wake her, and carried it to the kitchen. I'd been a mechanic all my life. Fixing things was in my blood. So, I tried a few old tricks, guesswork, birth dates, wedding dates, favorite numbers. After 10 tries, it unlocked. And what I found? God, I wish I hadn't. There were dozens of messages. From a number saved as EM. EM, the initials meant nothing to me at first. But as I scrolled, my stomach twisted. Miss you already? Can't stop thinking about your touch. Don't worry, he's asleep. You can come now. Those weren't words from my wife to a friend. They were confessions, whispered sins typed with shaking hands. And attached were photos. Some of them were from inside our bedroom. Inside the very house I built for her with my own hands. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor and the screen cracked, but it didn't matter. Because in that moment, something inside me cracked too. The next morning, I didn't say a word. I couldn't. How do you look at someone who's turned your love into a joke? She asked. Henry, is something wrong? And I said, no, just tired. But inside, I was burning alive. I waited until she fell asleep again and went out to find Tommy. He lived just across the fence, so I knocked quietly. Tommy, I said, about that video, do you still have it? He nodded. Yeah. I didn't delete it. Can you send me the number it came from? I asked. He did. And my blood ran cold? Because it was the same number, EM. Now, I knew what you might be thinking. Henry, why didn't you just confront her right then? Well, because I needed to see the man. I needed to know who had stepped into my home, touched my wife, and filmed that sin. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I set up a camera. Right there in the living room, hidden behind a photo frame. Just one small lens, quiet, patient. And I waited. Days passed. I acted normal, made her meals, told her jokes, held her hand when she coughed. But my heart wasn't in it anymore. One afternoon, I told her I was going into town for groceries. Instead, I parked around the corner and waited, watching the house from the car. It took less than 30 minutes. A man in a dark jacket walked up to my porch, looked around, and slipped inside using a key. A key. That meant she gave it to him. I felt a pain in my chest, sharp, suffocating, but I forced myself to stay calm. I waited another 10 minutes, then drove off so they wouldn't suspect. That night, when she was asleep again, I checked the footage. The camera had caught everything. He entered quietly, went straight to her room, leaned down, kissed her forehead, and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she laughed. Laughed. The sound I'd spent years longing to hear, the one I thought was gone forever. She'd given it to another man. I paused the video and stared at the frame. That face. That man. He wasn't a stranger. He was Eric Miller, our old neighbor from down the road. He used to come by sometimes, years ago, offering to help me fix the fence or carry things when my back hurt. He'd joke with Maggie, call her a sweet lady, and I'd laugh it off. He moved away after his wife passed. I hadn't seen him in almost 4 years. But now, he was back. In my house. In my wife's arms. That night, as I sat alone in the dark, watching that cursed video again, a thought began to grow inside me. Not anger. Not sorrow. Something colder. Something sharper. You trusted her, Henry, I told myself. You gave her your life. And she repaid you with lies. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't blink. I just stared at the wall until the first light of dawn crept in, and I whispered to myself. Tomorrow. I'll make them both face what they did. You ever sit across from someone you love and realize you've been sleeping next to a stranger for years? That's what I felt the next morning when I looked at Maggie. She was sipping her tea, the morning sunlight touching her pale skin, humming softly like nothing had changed. But I had changed. The man she once knew, patient, gentle, forgiving, he was gone. In his place sat a man who had seen the truth, and was about to face it. I waited until she set her cup down. My hands were trembling, but my voice wasn't. "Maggie," I said quietly. "We need to talk." She looked up, surprised. "Of course, Henry. What's wrong? Who is Eric Miller?" The color drained from her face. Her fingers froze midair. For a moment, she didn't breathe. What did you say?" "Don't play games with me, Maggie," I said, my voice sharper now. "I saw him. I saw everything." Her eyes filled with tears instantly, but I'd seen enough tears in my life to know which ones were real and which were survival. "Henry, please, let me explain." "Explain?" I scoffed. "Explain how the man I trusted to fix our fence ended up in your bed? In my home." She started crying harder. "It's not what you think. Please, just listen." I should have walked away right there. But I couldn't. Because even after everything, part of me still loved her. So I let her speak. "When you started working those double shifts to pay for my treatments," she said, "I was alone a lot. Eric was kind, he checked in, brought groceries, helped me with things you couldn't." "Things I couldn't?" I repeated bitterly. She nodded, wiping her tears. "It started innocent, Henry. I swear. But loneliness, it does strange things to people. He made me feel seen again. That hit me like a punch. Seen again. 30 years I'd devoted my life to her, and she felt invisible?" "So you slept with him," I said quietly. She didn't answer. Silence can be an admission, you know. After a moment, she whispered. "It happened once. Only once. Years ago. And I regretted it every day since." I wanted to believe her. I truly did. But lies, once they start, they multiply. "Years ago? Then why did I find messages from last week?" I asked, sliding her cracked phone across the table. Her lips quivered. Her eyes darted between me and the phone, like she was cornered. Then she said something that froze me even more than that video had. "Because Eric's not just a man I cheated with. He's..." She stopped. Her throat tightened. "He's what, Maggie?" She looked at me with the saddest eyes I've ever seen. "He's my son." I blinked. My mind couldn't even process it. "Your son?" I repeated. What kind of sick joke is this? She shook her head frantically. "Henry, please, listen. Before we met, before you and I married, I had a child. I was young, scared, and the father wanted nothing to do with him. My parents forced me to give him up for adoption. I never told you because I thought that part of my life was gone forever." I sat there, frozen. She was crying now, gasping for breath. "When Eric came to town all those years ago," she continued, "I didn't recognize him at first. But when he told me about his past, his adoption papers, Henry, it was him. My boy." She broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. "I know it looks terrible. I know what it must seem like. But those videos, that hand-holding, those messages, it wasn't what you think. I just wanted time with him. To feel like a mother again." I didn't know what to say. I felt like the room was spinning. If what she was saying was true, then everything I thought I knew, the betrayal, the affair, was just a tragic misunderstanding. But if she was lying again, then she was even crueler than I ever imagined. "Why didn't you tell me, Maggie?" I whispered. 30 years, and you couldn't trust me with that?" She looked at me through her tears. "Because I was ashamed, Henry. I didn't want you to see me differently. And when he showed up again, I panicked. I thought if you knew, you'd think I'd been unfaithful." I stood up, my knees weak. Everything inside me screamed to walk away, but I couldn't. Because now, there were two possibilities. Either I'd spent decades loving a woman who cheated on me, or decades married to a woman who was too afraid to tell me the truth about her past. Either way, I'd lost. I left the room, walked outside, and sat on the porch. The sky was gray, and the wind felt colder than usual. I lit a cigarette, something I hadn't done in 10 years, and just stared at the horizon. Her voice echoed from inside the house. "Henry, please, come back in. I'll show you everything. The papers, the photos, the letters he wrote me." But I didn't move. Because whether she was lying or not, I wasn't ready to hear more. Later that evening, Tommy came by again. He looked worried. "Mr. Walker, you okay? You look pale." I nodded weakly. "Tommy, that man in the video, Eric Miller, you sure that's his name?" "Yeah," he said. "He runs a small repair shop 2 towns over." "You want me to look him up?" And that's when I realized, if I wanted peace, I had to find the truth myself. I told Tommy, "Don't tell anyone what you know. I'll handle this." Because now, I wasn't sure if I was a betrayed husband, or a fool about to destroy the only person who ever loved him. That night, as I watched Maggie sleep, her frail chest rising and falling, I felt something strange. Pity. Fear. And still, love. But love mixed with doubt is poison. So I whispered to myself, "Tomorrow, I'll meet this Eric face to face." And deep down, I knew, whatever truth he carried, it would change my life forever. You know, people say the truth sets you free. But they never tell you what it costs. The next morning, I drove out before sunrise, the old Ford engine coughing like my tired lungs. I hadn't told Maggie where I was going. I didn't even leave a note. All I had was an address. The one Tommy found for me, a small auto repair shop on the edge of town. When I pulled up, the sign read, "Miller's Mechanics." Simple, quiet, just like the man in that video. I sat in the truck for a long time, watching through the windshield. A man came out, tall, strong, gray at the temples, wiping his hands with a rag. Even from a distance, I recognized him. Eric Miller. My chest tightened. This was it. 30 years of devotion, shattered by a few seconds of video, and this man standing before me. I got out and walked toward him. He turned, his face blank for a moment, then surprised. "Mr. Walker?" "Henry Walker, right." I didn't answer right away. I just stared. "Yeah," I said finally. "You remember me?" He smiled nervously. "Of course. From the old neighborhood. I didn't expect to see you here." "I didn't expect to see you in my house," I said coldly. That smile vanished. His eyes darkened, like he knew this conversation was coming. You saw the video." "I saw enough," I said. "Now you're gonna tell me everything." We stood there in silence for a long moment, the sound of traffic in the distance, wind brushing through rusted tools. Then he sighed. "I didn't want it to happen like this. I wanted to tell you both together. Tell me what? That I'm her son. The words hit me again, but this time I didn't flinch. I just stared, waiting for more. She's been trying to protect you, Mr. Walker, he said quietly. Not lie to you. When she found out who I was, she begged me to keep it secret until she could explain everything. But she never could. Then what about the video? The messages? The way she held your hand? He looked away, almost ashamed. I was the one recording it. For proof. Proof that I'd found her. I wanted to show my wife and daughter that I'd reconnected with my birth mother. I swear, there's nothing romantic or dirty about it. I didn't know whether to believe him. You expect me to believe a video like that was innocent? I said bitterly. He pulled out his phone. Here. Look. He opened his gallery, and there it was. Dozens of photos of Maggie smiling, holding his hand, laughing. But in many of them, there was a young woman and a little girl too. That's my wife and daughter, he said softly. They met her. We spent weekends together when you were out running errands. She told us stories, cooked for us, even helped my little girl with her school project. That's what the messages were about. I scrolled through them with trembling fingers. Every image looked genuine. Real. Family. And for the first time, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't expected: sincerity. Pain. Even guilt. She didn't want to hurt you, Mr. Walker, he said. She just didn't know how to tell you the truth. She said you'd think she was ashamed. That you'd hate her for having a past. I stepped back, dizzy. All those nights I spent staring at her, accusing her in silence. All that rage, all that suspicion, it had been killing the wrong person. She said she wanted to wait until your anniversary to tell you, he added quietly. She even had something planned. Letters. Old photos. She was going to surprise you. My throat went dry. Anniversary, that's next week. He nodded. She loved you, sir. She talked about you like you were the reason she was still alive. Those words, she loved you? They broke something inside me that anger never could. I turned away, unable to look him in the eye. Why'd you come back after all these years? I asked finally. Because I wanted a family again, he said. And she wanted closure. We both did. But now, after what happened, I think I ruined everything. His voice cracked. And that's when I realized he wasn't my enemy. He was a man searching for the same thing I was: peace. When I drove home, I didn't even know what to feel. The road blurred before me. Guilt burned in my chest like wildfire. I had accused my sick wife, the woman who trusted me most, of betraying me when all she wanted was to reconnect with her lost child. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw her sitting by the window, waiting for me. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw me. Henry. You're home. I walked inside, my knees weak, heart pounding. Maggie, I whispered, kneeling beside her. I saw him. I talked to him. She froze, fear flickering in her eyes. And? He told me the truth. Tears welled in her eyes instantly. Oh, Henry. I took her hand and pressed it to my forehead. I'm sorry, Maggie. I'm so sorry for doubting you. For everything. She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. I understand. You had every reason to doubt. I should have told you years ago. We sat there in silence for a long while, holding hands like we used to. The weight that had been crushing me finally started to lift. For a moment, it felt like peace. But peace doesn't last long in my story. Because that night, as I was putting her medicine away, I noticed something strange. In her drawer, beneath the bottles, was an envelope. Thick. Unsealed. And my name written on it. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled it out and unfolded the letter inside. It was written in her shaky handwriting. And the first line froze my blood all over again. Henry, if you're reading this, it means the truth killed me before you could forgive me. I held that letter in my trembling hands for a long time. The house was quiet, too quiet. You know that silence that feels heavy, like it's watching you? That's what it felt like. Maggie was asleep in her chair, the soft hum of the oxygen machine filling the room. Her hand rested on a blanket I'd knitted years ago. She looked peaceful. But my heart wasn't. Because in that moment, I realized I didn't want to know what came next. Yet my fingers moved on their own, unfolding that letter. Henry, it began. If you're reading this, it means I didn't have the courage to tell you in person. Or maybe my time ran out before I could. I swallowed hard, my eyes already stinging. There's something you never knew about the day you married me. You weren't my first love. Long before we met, I fell in love with a man named Robert Miller. We had a child together, Eric. But when Robert died in an accident, I couldn't provide for the baby. I was young, broke, and broken. I gave Eric up for adoption, believing I'd ruined his future. And I carried that guilt for decades. I paused. My vision blurred as tears welled up. When I met you, Henry, you brought peace to my chaos. You loved me when I didn't love myself. You gave me a home. But I could never find the right moment to tell you about my son. Every year, I thought, maybe next Christmas. Maybe next anniversary. And every year, I stayed silent. The words were fading under my tears now. Then one day, Eric found me. He said he forgave me. And when he hugged me, I realized I'd been living two lives, one with the man who saved me, and one with the boy I'd lost. I wanted to tell you both everything. I wanted us to be a family. But then my heart condition worsened, and I feared that truth would kill you before my illness did. I set the letter down, shaking. God, Maggie, I whispered. You should have told me. I turned to look at her. She was still sleeping, breathing softly, peacefully, like she was finally free. I sat beside her and took her hand. You didn't have to carry it alone, I said softly. You could have told me. I would have loved you anyway. Then I noticed something. Her chest wasn't rising anymore. For a second, I thought maybe the machine was malfunctioning. But when I touched her hand, it was cold. The letter slipped from my fingers. My world went silent. Maggie? I whispered. Maggie, wake up. No response. Just the sound of that machine still running pointlessly. And that's when I realized she'd waited for me to forgive her. And left the moment I finally did. I don't remember much after that. The funeral was a blur of black suits, wet handkerchiefs, and pitying looks. Eric stood beside me the whole time. He didn't speak much, just placed a hand on my shoulder. I wanted to hate him. But I couldn't. Because every time I looked at him, I saw her smile. Weeks passed. The house felt like a museum, quiet, filled with ghosts. Every chair she sat in. Every photo on the wall. All of it whispered her name. One evening, Eric came by again. He brought a small box. She wanted you to have this, he said quietly. I opened it. Inside was her wedding ring, a small locket, and a note that said, "For Henry, because you taught me what love really means." Inside the locket was a tiny photo, me and her, from our wedding day. We looked so young. So alive. I broke down right there in front of him. I spent my whole life protecting her, I said, choking up. But she was the one protecting me. He nodded slowly. She talked about you every day. Said you were her miracle. We sat in silence, two men bound by the same woman, one by love, one by blood. A few days later, I went out to her favorite spot, the old oak tree behind the house. I sat on the bench she used to love, holding her locket, and I just talked to her. You know, Maggie, I said softly, I thought I knew everything about love. But you taught me it's not about perfection, it's about forgiveness. I looked up at the sunset, the sky burning in shades of orange and gold. It felt like she was listening. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't wait to tell someone the truth. Don't wait to forgive. Because the moment you do, it might be too late. You think you have tomorrow, but life has a cruel way of reminding you, you don't. If you've stayed with me this far, tell me something, my friend. If the person you loved most in this world hid something from you, but you found out it was only to protect your heart, would you forgive them? Because I did. And in that forgiveness, I finally found peace. I visit her grave every Sunday now. I bring her favorite flowers, white lilies. Sometimes I talk. Sometimes I just sit there, listening to the wind, pretending she's answering. And every time I leave, I whisper the same words. I took care of you for 30 years, Maggie. But truth is, you took care of me the whole time. Then I walk away, knowing that somewhere, somehow, she's smiling. I took care of my sick wife for 30 years until a neighbor showed me a short video and my heart froze.